For this lesson, I'm going to be talking about preparing for a gig or a session. And I'm going to be sharing with you a very specific example that I've experienced. So, I am a wedding singer in part of my freelance work. So, I'll give you a really sort of tiring example just so that I can give you all of the tools that I do use for a day that's a little harder on my body, that's really, really long, possibly hard on your voice. Wedding songs tend to be very high up in your register. So if you have a 5-hour reception, you're sort of belting for about 5 hours with a few breaks in between. So that can be really tiring for your voice and for your entire body. So to sort of lay it out for you, you can so on a day that's pretty long, you'll meet in the city, you'll meet the band at, let's say, 7:30 a.m. So it's already a really early start. You'll drive hours up to some city upstate, and then you're lugging the gear and setting up the bandstand. So you're already a little bit tired from that. You're working with your band members to set up sound and all the gear. And then you have sound check. And then after sound check, you get dressed, but then you have to wait a few hours, it sounds like a nice break, but it's actually really difficult because after you've done all of that work, your body sort of feels like it can relax, and then you're waiting for a really long time. And then you're sort of expected to bring up the party again once reception does start. And then again, reception can be 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. You're jumping around, you're belting really high songs with your bandmates, and then the night ends, you break everything down again. So you're also exerting yourself physically one more time. And then you get in the car with your bandmates, and then you drive home, and then you'll meet at a meeting spot, but then you might have to take the train an hour back to Brooklyn, wherever you live. But that's sort of the day that I'm gonna lay out for you. So preparing for that sort of gig, there's a lot of preparation that you wanna do the day of for sure, but I'm gonna start with the day prior. There's a lot of preparation that you need to do 24 hours before you get into that gig day. So let's first talk about hydration. So hydration, of course, is extremely important just on the day-to-day for anybody. But if you're not hydrated, you can feel fatigued, you can get headaches from dehydration, you can be experiencing dry mouth. So these are all things that we want to avoid as singers, for sure. So let's talk about how people say you should drink a gallon a day before the day of a gig, or 6 cups, 8 cups. I don't subscribe to telling any singer, anybody to drink a specific amount of water. I think 8 cups is a really great place to start just to figure out what works for you. However, I would just say drink as much water as you feel the need to in order to feel really good the next day on the day of the gig. So for me, sometimes I'll drink a gallon of water, but other days I'm really just good with 6 cups. But it also depends on what you were doing that day. So let's say that you had to sort of socialize, you had to live your life the night before, and you had a few drinks. If you know that you're going to be hungover the next day, then you have to just compensate for that. So it's really about what works for you specifically, but you definitely want to hydrate the day before a gig. And I say the day before because your body needs time to absorb that moisture, including your vocal cords. But then on that note, I love steaming a ton. This one's the My Pure Mist free one. But this one specifically is a warm steamer. But basically what it does, it hydrates your vocal cords immediately. So if you're trying to drink water because your throat feels really dry, you'll notice that just because you take a sip of water, that doesn't mean your throat and your mouth is going to feel immediately hydrated. Steaming will do that for you, which is really a lifesaver. But let's also talk about caffeine. So I know I have a lot of friends that are addicted to caffeine. I don't actually think I have a friend that's not addicted to caffeine, or at least needs 1 cup of coffee in the morning. If you have 1 cup of coffee in the morning, I just always say, just get ahead of yourself and drink a cup of water before you have that morning coffee. But also, if you're someone who drinks 3, 5 cups of coffee a day, it's a diuretic. It will dehydrate you. So again, just like the alcohol, you have to compensate for that by drinking more water than, let's say, somebody who didn't drink alcohol the day before or doesn't drink as much coffee as you do. So now let's talk about what you should pack for a gig. So I already said that this is something that follows me on every single gig. So I need this steamer. But another thing that I always bring with me on gigs is Salonpas. So this is basically an icy hot, but any pain relieving patch I bring on gigs with me. So this one, it basically, here, I'll show you what it looks like also, but they're just really tiny rectangular patches, but here's one of them. And I just stick it right on my throat here and then on the other side, just because that's where I feel the most tension. That's very specific to me though. If you feel a lot of tension in your left shoulder specifically, then put it there. But I always feel tension just from like having to lug all that gear like I was telling you guys about earlier. So I'll always have these on hand just so that I can have it on me. And when I'm not singing, or even if I'm just sound checking, I'll have this on. But another thing on top of that, I'll have a neck warmer with me, just like this. But I'll just put that right over my neck, especially on a day that's like really cold. If I have this on my neck and I don't want to be breathing in cold air that's going to shock my muscles, then I'll just put this over my neck like that. And that's really helpful as well. On top of that, this is my favorite part because everything is also really yummy, but Grether's Pastille. So I'm just going to talk about lozenges for a second. But these are my favorite lozenges. I've noticed that these work the best, and I also really love the ingredients in all of these. But first off, here we have Grether's Pastilles. So I like this one because I only have one left because I literally eat these all the time. But I like this one because it's sort of like a mix between, like consistency-wise, between like a hard candy and a gummy. So if you don't chew it, it lasts a really long time. So this one I like to keep on me all the time. I think there's 3 different flavors. This one is black currant specifically, and it's my favorite flavor. Another one that I really like to bring with me is honeys. So this one, it says right on the bag too, but it has pure liquid honey inside. That's like the only ingredient is just honey. So, and also I want to mention that it's menthol free. I don't subscribe to using menthol on gigs like when you're performing because it does like strip the outer layer of your vocal cords. But this is also a really great one. Another one is Wetherspoon Manuka Honey Drops. Singers out there know that Manuka honey is really, really great for your throat. So is ginger, and so is echinacea. So that's also a really great one. But this is also another hard candy one. But unlike honeys, it doesn't have any syrupy thing inside or any gooey thing inside like honey. And then honey sticks, I always have these because if you end up stopping at a gas station and you need a little bit of tea just to like warm your throat, it's always really nice to just have honey sticks because this is real honey. Not every gas station has that on the road. But I also just like to eat these too because they're amazing. But these are also honey sticks, and I have a lot of them on me all the time. Second to last, I have bromelain. So this is really great for when you have a really fatigued, sort of swollen throat. If you're inflamed at all, this is awesome. It's from an enzyme in pineapples that are really good for inflammation. So I like to take these. You can take 1 or 2 a day as needed. And then lastly, this is called the SOVT straw. You can't really see it because I accidentally put it in the wash. It was in my pocket. But this is a singer straw. So this is just a straw that I keep on me all the time. It looks like that. But I can actually just vocal warm up with this. And there's a lot of different benefits. There's a ton of benefits to a singing straw, but I like to bring these on gigs with me specifically because, you know, it warms up my throat, it opens up my vocal cords and relaxes them, but also I just need to warm up sometimes. And sometimes if you go to a wedding venue, you won't have a place to really like actually sing out and warm up the way that you want to. You could go to the bathroom, but then there are guests there. So that can be a little bit difficult. So this sort of dampens your sound. Woo! So this I like to have on me all the time. Also, don't bother your bandmates. You don't have to be doing warm-ups in the car super, super loud. This can help with that as well. And then I'll talk about how much rest you need before a gig. So people will say you need 8 hours of sleep, but again, it's really just what your body specifically needs. I personally need a little bit more than 8 hours of sleep to feel really, really good on a gig. But the reason that it's important to figure out how much rest you specifically need before a performance that's a job or that's just personally really important to you, if you want to do a good job, you want to have the breath support. So if you're super fatigued, and then you're not feeling that breath support, you're not going to perform quite as well. So try to figure out exactly how many hours you need of sleep before a gig. And also, I'm going to bring up vocal rest, which I'm sure you've heard of. Vocal rest doesn't have a very specific definition. Vocal rest is exactly what it looks like for you. So let's say on weekends you do wedding gigs, but on the weekends you have a corporate job 9 to 5, and you have to be doing presentations, you have to be talking to clients all the time. It's just not realistic to not speak for 24 hours. It just doesn't work for most of us. If you're freelance and you can spare that sort of day, then that's awesome, do that. But if you're just intentional about not speaking for the 5 minutes that you have to go to the bathroom or take a lunch break, 15 minutes, whatever, just be really intentional. Do neck massages, if you know a few of those. Do some stretches while, you're eating your lunch or just, sitting on the toilet, whatever you're doing. But just be really intentional about what you're doing on those breaks. Not speaking, massaging, stretching, but also just avoid talking generally. But if you do have to talk, just talk in a really quiet manner, but not whispering. So don't yell, but also don't whisper. A lot of people think that whispering is going to help your vocal cords, but it's actually causing a lot of strain. So just find the point where your voice feels the least amount of resistance. Right now, I'm talking with a little bit of strain and a little bit of laziness, but if I was speaking very supported, it would pretty much be up here the entire time. That doesn't feel very true to me, so I'll bring it back down on just like the daily. But if you're vocal resting, then you want to talk in a place that feels really, really comfortable for you. So that's some of the things that I do when preparing for a gig or a session. Again, just to recap, you want to hydrate, you want to pack everything that you think that you need, like some of the tools that I use. And you also want to rest as much as possible. But again, everybody's body is different. Everybody's experience is different. So pack what you need to, rest as much as you need to, hydrate as much as you need to. And in the next lesson, I'm going to be talking about some tools that you can use and some things that you can do when you have a sore throat. There's going to be a little bit of overlap, but I'm going to be sharing some new things with you as well.